The Redskins just couldn't get out of their own way today in a game rife with mistakes, mental errors, and missed opportunities. Let's diagnose what went wrong right here on the Hogs Die.
By fans, for fans, the Hogs Die. And now, here's your host, Sean Conti.
And we are back here on the Hogs Die, another Sunday evening to deconstruct what just went down. Let's do it. Like I said, mistakes, mental errors, missed opportunities. I know this one was disappointing. I think we all predicted a win. I'm here with Steve and Alex. Guys, how you holding up?
Oh, I mean, lovely. Awesome. We just witnessed bad. So
I think I hurt myself somehow. So can you put me on the injury list at this point?
No, we do not have any more room.
They might.
Sorry, you're gonna have to tough
actually,
this one out,
Alex. Sorry to say.
Yeah. At this rate. So actually, that's a great thing to call out. How do we want to start? Do we want to start with stats, or do you want to start with the glaring death and destruction that was wrought on our squad today?
All right.
Yeah, okay.
Oh, okay.
Go ahead, Alex.
All right, so this is not counting all the guys who were hurt before the game. This was everybody who got hurt during the game. Let's start with Jordan Reed, valuable piece on our offense.
Okay.
Let's move on to another valuable guy, our only healthy starting lineman, Sean Laval. He got hurt. Monte Nicholson got injured. No one even noticed. Same with Matt Ioannidis, for that matter. Matt Ioannidis didn't play in the second half, I don't think. I think he got hurt around either beginning of the third or end of the second half. No one ever mentioned it.
I got to be honest.
Yeah.
I didn't notice.
They didn't mention it. Niles Paul, we all know he got a concussion-looking thing, it looked like. Kelly got hurt. I don't know if he ever came back in.
Yeah, the very last play of the game he was in.
Okay.
Yeah.
No surprise there.
Kerrigan had that pulled groin.
Oh,
thing,
really?
And he came back
That's
in
kind of
he's
nice,
Ryan
I
Kerrigan,
guess.
and he tries.
Yeah.
And got a
Initially
sack.
said questionable to return, came back about 2 minutes later.
Mr. William Bartholomew Compton got hurt.
Right.
I just made up his middle name for the record.
Hey, nice.
And T.J. Clemmings.
Oh, that's too bad. I'm disappointed.
Name I had.
No, you mean
there might have been some other
future Hall of Famer T.J. Clemmings.
Yes.
Yeah.
Future Hall of Fame backup T.J. Clemmings.
T.J. Clemmings, that's right.
I would just like to point out.
Don't give him a hard time, Steve. This was a tough game.
I would just like to point out that Orlando Franklin, I think, if I count right, is our fourth string tackle.
1, 2, 3.
Isn't that right?
Well, this isn't counting that we had guys like Vincent Painter on the roster for a while.
Well, no, I'm talking about like who's on the roster right at this moment. Because you've got Moses and Trent Williams, obviously, the starters. Right. You have Ty Nsekhe, and then T.J. Clemmings.
Yeah, that's 3.
And then
4.
And then 4. So he's a 4-string tackle who was playing.
Right. Well, or 5 if you want to count Moses and Williams as
1 and 2.
1 and 2.
No, I mean they're both ones. Let's do that. Let's get
I think we had one more guy who we actually cut and was also an offensive tackle at one point.
Yeah, we did. We've cut a couple of them. There were a couple on the practice. Let's get off this ridiculous conversation. Talk about this ridiculous game. Okay, stats. Kirk Cousins was 26 of 30.
Okay, fine.
Kirk Cousins was 26 of 39 for 263 yards, 1 touchdown, 1 interception, 4 sacks. Quarterback rating of 83.6. Rob Kelly was terrible, 8 for 19, 2.4 yards per carry with a long of 10. Chris Thompson wasn't much better, 4 of 18 for 4.5 yards. As a team, they were 15 for 49 yards rushing, meaning just as an interesting stat, combined for the past 2 games, they've rushed for less than 100 yards. James Crowder had the game of the year for him. He was 9 receptions on 13 targets for 123 yards. Chris Thompson was 8 receptions on 9 targets for 76 yards. Ryan Grant had a decent game, 7 targets, 5 receptions, 38 yards. Vernon Davis, 2 for 20. Jordan Reed, before he got hurt, was 1 for 5. Josh Doxson had a single yard on a single catch. Terrell Pryor had 1 target, which was the missed pass by Kirk Cousins for no yards, and Rob Kelly none. On the Dallas side of the equation here, Dak Prescott was 14 to 22 for 143 yards, no touchdowns. Ezekiel Elliott was 33 carries for 150 yards for 4.5 yards per carry, 2 touchdowns. On the receiving wise, yeah, boo. Receiving wise, Des Bryant 4 for 39,
Boo.
Terrence Williams 2 for 36, Jason Witten 3 for 31, and then some guy named Jeff Swaim was a 1 for 18, and that are the stats, at least on offense. So there you go. So where do we start, people? Where do we start?
Well, I would say, why don't we start off with offense, Redskins offense, because we just talked about the most decimated unit is probably that offensive line, right? So we can talk about that impact on how the whole offensive performance went in general, I would say.
Yeah, no question. I mean, not a single player on that offensive line from our starting five was healthy.
Right.
I think if Ty comes back next week, you'll see Moses probably out next week. And it could... We literally could be looking at an all-new starting five next week.
Well, what do you guys think is going to happen? Are we about to scoop a bunch of guys up, you think?
Yeah, probably.
Yeah, we're going to have to.
No other choice.
It's I would love to be able to say that offensive line impacted our rushing game, but the truth of the matter is our run game looks exactly the same as it did last week in terms of results produced. Where it really, they held their own more or less in pass pro.
Yeah.
They didn't look awful in the first half, but there was a lot more pressure on Kirk than normal, which is understandable. So for. Yeah, I mean, considering who was out there, since we just had this fourth string, fifth string discussion, those guys did pretty well, all things considered. I don't completely blame the O-line for what went down today, considering the circumstances.
Yeah, I mean...
Well, you certainly can't blame him for the running game as much, I think. I think definitely the pressure on Kirk, for sure. He was sacked. It took another 4 sacks, I think, this week. That's the second week in a row.
A couple of sacks there, and a couple of plays that weren't quite sacks where they had everybody just ran free right at Kirk Cousins.
And it showed in the passing game, too, and the balls a couple times got tipped, because guys are right there in his face. Obviously, we saw what happened there at the end of the game. So, yeah.
Might have impacted that. On the block.
My point was, I think they got...
That's right.
As the game got down, it got progressively worse and worse with those guys. But I just can't honestly fault them too much, considering, Orlando Franklin was literally on the street 2 days ago. I mean, 2 days ago, the man was not on an NFL roster.
He came
Tyler Catalina.
At the same time, he was also a high-round draft pick a couple years ago.
Okay, that was an
lineman.
eon ago, though. I mean, I'm not trying to make excuses for him. I'm just saying that considering the circumstances, and for that matter, I saw out there on social media that everybody's mad at Kirk and blah blah blah. Can you guys really be mad at Kirk Cousins? I know I sound like Team Kirk here, but my God, I mean, we have no wide receivers worth a darn outside of James and Crowder. They were down to one tight end at the end of the game. The running back situation was terrible. He had no offensive line starters at all, or even backups. And yet you're going to say Kirk Cousins isn't worth the money and he's terrible and blah, blah, blah. You guys need to get a grip if you're out there thinking that, considering what went down today.
People are just looking for anyone to blame. I mean, I saw just as much people blaming Gruden when Kirk Cousins threw a pick. People said it was Gruden's play calling. And it's like, and I'm not talking about the last one. I'm talking about I think it was the second one. I noticed a lot of people were blaming the play calling for Kirk Cousins throwing that pick right down the middle of the field. And it just gets absurd. We're just looking for scapegoats at this point, and it's. Well, I hate to say it, half your team is injured. You're not going to win good games against good teams if you're. Well,
no, I was just going to say I think that's completely true. And to go back to something Steve said, once again, we can almost replace ourselves right now with a programmed voice box machine, because we can just say the same things every week. The receiving corps, once again, just not showing up at all. And Steve, you say every week we can't have Chris Thompson as the number one guy again. Yeah. Well, we got to stop saying that, because that's what we got as the number one guy every week. It's just going to be that way.
Well, I think technically this week Crowder was the number one guy. So there is. Yeah,
sure, but that's an aberration.
It
for
took
Crowder
till week 7, and we finally have one receiver who broke 100 yards.
Yeah. Oh, he was good in week 1 too, or something, right?
Yeah.
So he has two.
He's had a couple
games
good plays
here
and there. Yeah.
And by the way, on
Yeah.
the stats, I didn't mention that Josh Jackson had a touchdown, incidentally, when we're talking about wide
Sure.
receivers. But yeah, I mean, the truth holds. The same thing holds. Yes, thank God, Jamison Crowder, finally showed up. Yay. But I mean, you just don't even know what to say. I mean, the two guys that were signed to produce and be the leading receivers on this team have produced almost zero. Almost zero.
Right.
And the one Pat target
Quite
that was
literally
at
today, they produced, I think, 0 yards. So
well, it was 1 yard. Come on, man. They had the 1 yard between Dox and Pryor. They had a yard. A yard.
yes,
And yes, the
Okay,
current.
good job, guys.
I saw some people complaining about Pryor's hands on his one target there on the sidelines. That was the fault of Kirk Cousins. People, the ball was
that was a terrible throw.
80 million feet in the air, and only a guy who's 6'5" would even have a chance at it. So don't blame that one on Pryor.
Right. I actually give Pryor credit for even catching that thing.
Yeah, true. But here's what I think we can conclude.
And people also, yeah.
Well, no, what I was about to say is the run game is what's really bad on this team. And we haven't had a good run game the entire year. And it's getting worse and worse. And, yeah, we had a bunch of O-line problems. But, the run game on this team is just pathetic. I've tried to champion Rob Kelly, but, I mean, come on. This is the second week in a row with awful yardage.
Yeah, when rubber hits the road, it's not – Rob Kelly's not getting it done. Thompson really doesn't get it done in the run game as much as he does in the pass game. It's a mess. And the fact that we're not even trying to use Perrine anymore or Pirine and we cut Mac Brown, right?
We
So
cut
he's
Mac Brown
not
out
there.
of necessity.
Might as well have at this point.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, no, realistically, sorry, folks, we had a little technical snafu there, but realistically, I don't even want P. Ryan in the game at this point. He's shown absolutely nothing whatsoever either.
No one's
Any
shown
fumbles. Yeah, no one has. So there's just not a good answer. They're going to have to draft a running back, a high-end running back, again. That's the only answer. It's going to come in the offseason.
Yeah, I more or less agree. I can't really disagree with that. I wouldn't be upset to see a big pick spent on running backs or two. Other problems in this game, turnovers. Bit us a couple times. I don't know how much you can, like we said, you can't necessarily blame Kirk for taking all that pressure. That offensive line was a total mismatch of guys. But, took a hard hit and fumbled the ball. Chris Thompson had one. Turnovers, in a game where your offense can't quite get going, you definitely can't have turnovers,
No.
and we had a couple today. So we just got beat all around today. I don't think there's any other way to put it.
Yeah. I think if you really go and look back at it, it all comes down to we turned it over on that kick and then 2 fumbles back to back right after that, and that killed you.
That'll kill you any week. It doesn't matter
Yeah.
who you're against. That'll kill you every time.
Yeah, we're lucky we didn't go down 21 points.
Yeah, I put out there, I was doing the live tweeting too, and I put out there that I thought the real turning point was when Doxson dropped that long pass. And I got a million.
Yeah, I think
comments.
you're alone in thinking that.
Well, here's the. I know I didn't. I couldn't. I couldn't keep up with all the comments. Doing everything we were doing for the game. But I stand by that, though. I still stand by that because the blocked field goal and everything that happened in the first half. And yes, it was bad. And yes, it was a 10-point swing. But I thought where the momentum really died was that play. Because if the Redskins had converted that play, it would have been deep in Dallas territory. If they had scored at that point, I think it would have been a different game. So I personally thought that was the turning point, but maybe I'm alone in that.
I think it's a little bit homerish to think that we had any momentum left by that point. I think that the momentum had died out pretty well already or by then.
Yeah, I don't disagree with you on that, Alex, though I would just say to you guys, a final note on offense, at least, before we switch to defense. Keep in mind, guys, that the game was not necessarily out of hand, really, until the very end.
Right.
Yes, momentum was not necessarily on our side, but, we had opportunities towards the end of the game. I wouldn't necessarily say you can credit anything that happened much earlier than that with, as the turning point in the game. We still had life.
Yeah.
We shouldn't have had life, but we did have life.
We had life.
I guess that's
you're
more
right,
of a statement about the
but
Cowboys than us. Though.
Until our offense can find somebody who can make a play on the outside of the field,
Yeah.
it's like we can't be down 2 scores and expect to come back.
I agree.
It's like
No, I think you're right.
It's like being a triple option team in college, and being down by more than 14 points. You
And
just
you're
don't come back from that.
Yeah, you're just done. Well, I mean, with the O-line problems, though, on it realistically, I mean, yes, it would have been nice to have different play calling in those last couple drives, but realistically, with the O-line and the shape that it was, Kirk Cousins isn't going to be able to do 5 or 7 step drops and to go downfield under those circumstances. Real quick,
and not just that, with the weather the way it was. I mean, Kirk does not have a great arm for throwing in rain and wind.
That and our receivers suck. Combine all those things together.
Right.
Real quick, run pass balance. Just wanted to point it out in case anybody cares. We were at the end of the game. We were 15 runs, 39 passes. At the half, we were 9 and 18. So we were very slanted towards pass. I mean, understandably, I'm not really criticizing in this case. Dallas was the opposite way. They were 30. Why do I have 30 runs? 33 runs, 22 passes, and that was kind of the way they held the entire game. So that was run pass balance.
Yeah. In that kind of weather, you're going to do the only things you think you can do to get yards, and Dallas can do it on the ground, and we can't.
Yeah.
So I'm not shocked by either of that.
39
coaches
total
are going to
carries.
tend to lean on their best weapon.
Yeah, exactly. Like Steve said, I think you can't necessarily criticize them too much in the context of this game, at least. But still, ugly as hell. Anything else on offense, guys, or you want to switch to defense here real quick?
Defense.
I don't see a light at the end of the tunnel.
No.
That's my last thing on the offense.
Not unless our receivers all of a
That's fair
sudden.
enough. Okay, well.
Not unless our receivers all of a sudden become good. Yeah.
Well, you might be asking for a little too much there, Steve. Switching over there to the defensive side of the ball, though, give it up for Zach Brown and a couple guys that can continue to make plays. I mean, the defense was trying to keep us in the game here. They were trying their best. I think that was the only reason we had life, and it wasn't worse than a 2-score game. Ultimately, not enough, obviously. But there were some bright spots.
Yeah,
I mean, not many, but you could definitely see a few here and there. Norman, for being injured, played really well, I thought.
Yep, absolutely.
He did.
You had that nice stop, actually, at the end of the game, too, I wanted to mention. You had that nice stop, forcing the Cowboys to punt at the end of the game. Mm-hmm. That was a great stop. I think that was Brown again there at the very end of the game, still coming up with plays. Ultimately, we saw the result, but way to give us a chance there at the end.
Yeah, I think Zach Brown may end up being our only Pro Bowler this year, honestly. I mean, depending on Trent's status with his health and everything. He had 12 tackles again. He's consistently leading this team in tackles. He's really and truly been the only consistent lone bright spot. DJ Swearinger bounced back. He had a good game. He got some pressure on the safety blitz there in the second half. He had a couple good pass defenses.
Yeah,
so he had a bad game last week, bounced back, 7 tackles. Martrell Spade had 7 tackles. Will Compton, before his little injury, had 7 tackles. It kind of goes down from there. But Ryan Kerrigan, he's way down the list.
2 sacks, I think.
Yeah, 2 sacks. Those are his only tackles. 2 sacks, 2 tackles. And can we just mention how big of a bust Junior Gillette is? I mean, has anybody been more disappointed on defense?
Yeah.
Who?
Yeah, exactly. Who? I mean, I was so excited about getting him back, but he's just done absolutely nothing all year but get penalties.
Yeah, I'm with you. I mean, we kind of all knew going into the season that the whole outside linebacker situation had to be solved for next year. I think it's kind of solved itself.
Yeah.
It's going to be Smith and Anderson and Kerrigan, and maybe if he comes back, we keep Murphy. I don't know.
I don't know about that.
Yeah.
We'll see. It's not going to be Gillette, though, unless something dramatic happens in the second half of the season.
Yeah, I think we all know Gillette's done.
Yeah. Although, to be fair, he hadn't played in 2 years, and, this is his first time back, and we'll see. Maybe he gets the sea legs in the second half. We'll see. I like the guy. I like his attitude and effort.
Didn't he get like a Redskins tattoo or something?
Yes, he did.
He got a giant Redskins tattoo after he tore his ACL again.
Not his Achilles,
okay.
not his ACL.
All right.
Sorry, Achilles.
Yeah.
Yeah, whatever it is. I mean, what else did you guys see well,
the key on defense.
What can you really say defensively about this game? You couldn't really contain the one guy you really had to watch out for, which was Zeke.
Yeah, that's the key on defense,
he went
right?
ham on us.
I mean, it was like it was 2016 again, with this run defense. We faced some good runners this year, and none of them, even Kareem Hunt, really ran wild like Zeke did. Zeke just went crazy. They couldn't stop him any point this game, and he had a couple more long runs taken back because of penalty.
Yeah. How much of this do you think is just the fact that we've lost, 3 guys in our starting 7 now? 4, something like that? I think that's played a major role in why Zeke was able to just gash us all day.
Do you really think Jonathan Allen?
You lost
Jonathan
your 2
Allen,
best interior linemen.
do you really think if Jonathan Allen was there, though, that all of a sudden Zeke would be rushing at 3 yards a carry on a day like today?
I think that Allen makes the rest of the team around him much better, yes. I don't know. He alone wouldn't do it, but Allen wouldn't get pushed back like Ziggy Hood gets pushed back. And I think that's the difference.
Yeah, true. I mean, that's fair. Look, I mean, the story of the game was injuries, on every side of the ball. I mean, that's what you take away from it. I mean, the Redskins were playing at very much a disadvantage in every way. It didn't go well, but they didn't quit. And, it was a game opportunity. It's just with all these changes, they just made too many mistakes and too many bad plays. Too many,
Yeah.
they kicked their own butt in some ways.
Yeah.
I guess if you have to say something, you can say Minuski has turned this defensive squad around. It's not going to be noticed very much this year with the offense underperforming. But I think you can see in games like this that they're obviously not the weak squad, even if we have injuries.
I mean, today was a bad game,
I will
though.
say the first drive or so, I was really worried because they were playing a lot of soft zone. The tight ends were getting open really easily.
Right.
And I was worried we were just in for the Dak Prescott show for a while. But
that's the thing, we weren't.
yeah,
I mean, Prescott wasn't the problem at all.
All that up pretty quick.
Yeah, I was.
Yeah, I mean, I think actually, if you've got to say something, that might be something worth throwing out there again. Steve, what did you say Prescott's final passing numbers were on the day?
Prescott's final numbers were not very. It was efficient, but not all that great. 14 of 22.
Yeah, not big yards.
14 of 22 for 143 yards.
Yeah, see, that's
around 60% completion. I'm not doing that math.
Well,
in my
it's
head,
7.
right?
It's
But
7 for 11, which is slightly more. Yes, it's about 60.
yeah, so about right there, but not a lot of yards.
Yeah, but look, I mean, when you have a running back that gets the ball 33 times, you don't need to have a whole bunch of
you don't
passes.
need to.
Yeah, you really don't need to.
Yeah.
And like you guys, I was afraid after the first drive that they just ran through us like a knife through butter. There early in the first quarter, things were going to turn out totally differently. They did stand up to these guys to a certain extent. Considering that 3 of these field goals came on turnovers, was it 3? They didn't do too badly. That's all. I just have a hard time being too overly gloom and doom about anything but the status of injuries.
Yeah, I mean.
Oh no, yeah, that's more than enough.
I'll put it this way though: with all these injuries, I'm just waiting for Jay Gruden to have Mara or not Mara.
You talking about the coach of the
freaking
Cardinals?
out in the playoffs.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Oh,
yeah.
Jim Mora, you mean playoffs? Playoffs.
Yeah, Mora,
That guy-
not Mara.
Yeah,
Mora.
it was
Yeah,
Mora.
yeah. I think Gruden's about to hit that wall at some point.
Maybe. I mean, if you want a positive, I think Quentin Dunbar was a positive. He played Dez, one-on-one sometimes, at times today, and did pretty well. I mean, Dunbar,
He
look
got
how
beat
far.
once or twice, but
Yeah, he did.
Yeah.
I mean, but considering, he's not the starter,
Dez
and they had
Bryant.
to jump him in.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it's Dez Bryant. And considering how far that guy's come from what Jay Gruden described as a bad wide receiver to a guy who's in the rotation and is a solid player at corner, I think he's a bright spot. Josh Norman, was clearly gutted it out today, and was tough in spite of knee rib injuries. I can't believe his ribs are healed. There's no way his ribs healed in 2 weeks or however long he's been out.
no, you can't heal in 2 weeks, 3
Yeah.
weeks. Yeah,
Right. So he's tough, and he played Dez well. I mean, Dez was contained. And the one-on-one, the times he had with Dez one-on-one, he did real good job on him. So, if you want a positive, there you go. Positive. Check.
Well, thanks for that, because we have to turn back to the negative. This means 3 losses to division rivals on the year. Not looking good for the Redskins in terms of playing in our own division this year. Pretty close to out of reach, we would say, at this point.
I think
Any hopes of anything?
I would say beyond pretty close. I'd say it's out of reach.
Yeah.
Realistically,
so
yes.
Get into next year mode already. We don't want to put it necessarily like that, but that's more or less the truth.
Well,
I
mean,
think, and yeah.
I mean, we've got the Giants twice coming up, and they're horrible, so that's good.
It'll be our only saving grace.
We've got the Cardinals coming up, and they've been bad. Carolina isn't as good as everybody thought they'd be, although they're getting better. So
Right.
I mean, there's hope. It might not be next week with the Seahawks. We'll talk about that in a couple days, but there's hope. It's hope that it's going to get better from where it is right now. Put it that way. As long as we get healthy.
Yeah, I mean, it's all a question of if they can get guys healthy, and especially on that O-line, because I don't think Trent's coming back, but if Brandon Scherf comes back, maybe that's something.
Yeah.
If Moses can get a week off somehow and heal up.
I don't know how
healthy.
we can say Trent's not coming back. I mean, we don't know about his medicals. Really. I mean, we're not there, and we're not reading the medicals, and we don't hear what the doctor says. I mean, maybe he can play. I'm just not willing to say.
Doctors out there have been a lot of reports that doctors are saying he can't if he'll do permanent damage.
Yeah, I mean, if that's the case, then IR him and move on.
That doesn't surprise me.
I mean, I'm just saying I'm not willing to totally give up on it yet. Until we hear from people who are legitimate sources.
I would say, look, if anybody needs to take some home from this episode today, I'd say if you're a football player that is not currently on an NFL team, keep that cell phone charged this week because you may be getting a call. Might be making some dreams come true this week.
I think they need to start making some calls to the Arena Football League guys. Turn over every rock at this point.
Let's talk about where is the worst. Where is the biggest injury problem? Obviously, O-line, right? And depending on
that's right there.
Depending on O-line, then D-line.
Depending on T.J. Clemens' injury, they may be signing yet another tackle. If T.J. Clemens' injury is really bad because it didn't look good, just the way he was walking.
No,
they're going to have to sign another tackle unless Ty Nsekhe happens to be ready. So that's one.
Well, Ty is looking closer from what I've seen in terms of reports of him practicing and stuff. So. He might be ready next week.
Maybe.
You cross your fingers.
And then the other thing is tight end. Depending on how banged up Jordan Reed is, because he was back in the game, after he got hurt, and so maybe he's going to be able to go. But Niles Paul looked really woozy, so you have to assume he has a concussion. And so I would assume then that Jeremy Sprinkle is going to be activated as the third tight end. So that's a problem.
/ fullback, and frankly, he might be a little better suited for that than Niles Paul is.
Yeah, maybe. And then running backs, Rob Kelly's clearly banged up. Mac Brown is gone, so that's a problem. We could, I guess, the entire team is injured. Maybe that's a better way to put it.
Yes.
I mean, this happens to one team every year. It seems you hear this happen to a team, and it's definitely us this year. It's just life.
Well, unfortunately, we have this happen every 3 years. It seems like.
Yeah, that's true. And every third year, it's the Redskins.
I like that. It's the Redskins, and that's usually when we fire a coach and blame them for injuries.
I mean, the Grim Reaper of death has fallen over Redskins Park this year. But like you guys said, I mean, it seems like it happens all the time to this team. When are we going to have a year that we don't have a bunch of injuries? I guess we had it in 2015.
Oh, and that's what I was trying to say. This is we were talking kind of off air, just amongst the three of us. I was trying to say, is this? What can you point to? Is this just really bad luck, or is it conditioning, or is there something about preparation, or what can you point to? And I mean, I don't think there's any consensus on that. I think it's just this happens. It sucks.
It happens.
It's just unlucky. It's not necessarily anyone's fault.
I can't blame a dirty hit on Spencer Long and 2 sprained ankles in Morgan Moses on poor conditioning. It's just luck. And Trent
or dirty hits on Scherf too.
Yeah, on Scherf. Yeah, I meant Scherf, not Long.
Yeah.
I mean, it's not conditioning; it just happens. And Trent Williams, that guy's been hurt since day one.
Right.
He always plays hurt.
If anything's going to bring him down, ultimately, it's going to be the injuries. Yeah. So I don't think it's just. I just think it's bad luck.
Well,
it's not like it's a bunch of hammies. If you're talking about a million hammies, then maybe you have a conditioning problem. But this is like
that was always the knock on Deshaun, right? Yeah. He was getting hamstrings and he never practiced in the offseason.
Yeah. And, you do kind of wonder if they just need to take a second look at everything that could be causing it and just saying, are we doing everything the right way just to make sure?
Yeah, or is there something we can change? Is there something we could do even better, even if we're not doing something wrong?
Right.
You know, what can we do with a team that is just totally decimated?
Sure.
I mean, at one point, is the season over? Are we at that point already? I mean,
Probably.
are we effectively in 2018 mode already? I hope not, but it may be true.
No, I think if you get to 7 losses, then you're at that point.
Yeah, definitely.
I mean, we're 3-4.
Yeah.
It's certainly not looking good, but I mean, look.
And if you look at the schedule, there's at least 3 more losses on the schedule.
Yeah, I mean, yes, very true, certainly. But it could be better. We've got the Giants twice. We just went through this. I mean, it could be getting better in the second half.
Yeah.
Yeah, we'll see. I don't know about you guys, though. I feel good about my 6-10 prediction.
I don't feel very good about my 9-7. That's for sure.
No.
I don't feel good about that one either.
Well, I mean, part of me would almost love to see the whole 5-11 thing, just to see Chris Russell walk to Redskin Park like he said he would do if that happened.
Has Chris Russell ever owned up to any of those things he says? Wasn't he supposed to quit a few years ago after he made one of those dumb predictions?
He was supposed to quit about something with Jim Haslett, I think.
Yeah, I can't remember what it was. I mean, look, we don't really know Chris Russell in this show particularly. He's never been on the show. But I don't mind him particularly, but if you're going to start
entertaining.
Yeah, if you start making outlandish stuff, you got to at some point stick with it,
Right. Hey, if he does that, I might take a day off
justice.
work and just follow it.
Drive behind him at 5 miles an hour.
Behind him with my car.
Do it.
Oh my God. We're getting totally off the rails, guys.
Yeah.
Yeah, what do you think? Should we put the kibosh on this thing and do game balls?
Yes.
Call it a night?
Yeah,
Please.
let's do game balls.
Okay. All right, you guys gonna make me go first?
No,
I
I'll
have
go
to?
first because I got a obvious one on offense at least.
All right.
And that's Jameson Crowder, who I think probably was our most productive receiver and runner today. Sad but true. And so, we all know Crowder has the potential to really be a legitimate starter for us, and he just hasn't gotten in rhythm. Maybe this is the game that kind of sets his... If he can start doing what he did today every week, then his season turns around. And that's a bright, shining little star, in an otherwise dismal season so far.
Yeah, absolutely.
But, so that would be my one on offense. On defense, I'm going to go with Norman, who came in. Obviously, he's still gutting it out like we were talking about. And he's Josh Norman. He plays like Josh Norman even when he's hurt.
See, you went first because you knew that those are the two obvious ones, and you wanted to grab them. You wanted to grab them before, because those were going to be my two. But since I know I can't give a game ball to either one,
since when do you?
There's
follow
still
that
another
rule? 'Cause
obvious
I'm the
one.
only one who's ever followed that rule.
You know what? You're right. Jameson Crowder gets my offensive game ball because he deserves it. 9 for 9 receptions, 123 yards, absolutely. And in terms of defense, I'm just tired of giving Zach Brown the game ball. I think his closet is full at this point.
Yeah. Yep.
I mean, gosh, I hate to copy you completely, but I mean,
it's all right. I don't judge.
I mean, I think Josh Norman has to get it. He was a gutsy performance today, and Des Bryant didn't go wild. So Josh Norman, truth of the matter is, I want to give a game ball to Zeke Elliott. I just want to have it laced with poison or something, maybe. But yeah. So Crowder and Norman.
I wanted to give one to Josh Allen for showing us how much we needed him, but
yeah, just so he remembers how loved he is.
Yes,
it's not a bad idea. Yeah, I mean, what can I do? I'm not going to copy you, but I can't get too creative, obviously, because the numbers are what they are. Offense, Chris Thompson. Why not? I'm tired of giving it to him too, but
right.
You know what? You gotta reward consistency. You gotta reward
He's got
consistency.
his
I'm not going to give it to
at this point too.
It's true, but that's what I'm saying. You gotta reward that because you can't just give it to the guy that has a flashy game. That ultimately doesn't make a difference.
Mm-hmm.
It's great if you have one 123-yard game. It ain't gonna be enough if it's just one.
I was gonna give a game ball to Tyler Catalina just to be totally out of left field, but see, I gave a one to the guard last week. I think didn't I give a game ball to?
I don't remember.
To a lineman?
I don't.
We really should be
remember.
tracking this on the website. I think that falls on me.
If it was anything but utterly meaningless, we could do it.
Catalina's not the worst call in the world if we're getting crazy with these things because he did have a nice play in there.
He did. That's my point.
Call.
It was not that. It's not that outrageous. His first time he really played. For God's sakes.
That's tempting. Yeah, no, I'll go Chris Thompson and defense. Yeah, I'm not, whatever. I don't care. I'm going to give it to Zach Brown just because. So
Who'd you give it to?
to Zach Brown.
Zach Brown.
It's nothing interesting.
Mumbled your way through that so bad.
Even we couldn't understand you,
Yeah.
much less the audience. Zach
Trying
Brown.
to think of something, somewhere, anywhere else to go with it, and there's just nowhere else to go with it. So, whatever. It is what it is.
Well, Ryan Kerrigan
we
would
are-
have been an honorable mention, by the way. 2 sacks.
Kerrigan. You know what? Kerrigan's great. He had 2 sacks, right?
Yeah.
That's a good one.
He's on pace for
Kerrigan would've been
10
perfect.
again this year, right?
Yeah.
I think.
Yeah. I don't have
It's a quiet 10 that he's on pace for. You're not hearing much about it. Well, anyways, that's that. We will put the kibosh on this one. It was painful to watch. It was painful to get through. Again, we all predicted a win. Sometimes you just don't get what you predict, though. That's life. Hopefully, we can have a bounce-back game next week. And until
as
then,
we go into
we'll see you
Seattle.
guys. Oh boy, you had to say the word, didn't you, Steve? No. Yeah. Hopefully, hey, we got our fingers crossed this week. We'll get back with you all later.
Right.
Take care.